Oral questions, questions orales. L'honorable député de Mégantic.
The honourable member for Mégantic, l'Érable, Lotbinière. More and more Canadians are wondering how they're going to manage to make ends meet, but not the Prime Minister. He gets a little richer every day, since he's able to make decisions to benefit his company, Brookfield, for example. After meeting with the American president, he came back with nothing for Canadians, but a lot for his company, which managed to sign an $80 billion nuclear energy agreement. We are told that he manages cabinet like a private company. Well, indeed, why do the profits end up going into his pockets while Canadians always end up paying the bill? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, this morning, Canadians are very pleased with the results of our incredibly powerful economy. The best in the G7. 2.6% growth over the last quarter. Madam Speaker, what does that mean? It means opportunities for our youth. It reflects our defense investment, our economic investments. It's the result of our hard work with the provinces to meet the economic ambitions of all of Canada. The honourable member for Mégantic, l'Érable, Lotbinière. Before becoming Prime Minister, the chair of Brookfield moved their headquarters to New York. Before he became Prime Minister, the chair of Brookfield created 3 investment funds, one of them over a bike repair shop. All of this to avoid paying taxes in Canada. That's called tax evasion. And the former chair of Brookfield, now that he's Prime Minister, is raking in the profits by taking government decisions that favor his own company. Why does he continue to act like the chair of Brookfield, placing his interests ahead of those of Canadians who are picking up the bill? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, I sympathize with the official opposition because they don't have any idea what to do in this situation. Every day, practically, the other side of the House is left having to deal with the fact that we're having amazing economic growth, that we're getting results. For example, this morning we heard 2.6% growth over the last quarter. That means jobs. That means rural economic development. The results are in, Madam Speaker. We are building Canada strong.
Prime Minister's trust may be blind, but the math is not. This week, we found out from Brookfield's chief operating officer that the Prime Minister stands to make millions in carried interest payments from his company's success related to climate and infrastructure schemes that he set up. Many, if not all, of the public financial instruments, funds and policies the Prime Minister started pushing when he was pulling Trudeau's strings as his economic advisor in 2020 align with Brookfield's strategy and success. How is it ethical when the Prime Minister is using the power of his office to benefit him and his company?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met with the operating engineers all across the country who came to talk to me about the investments we're making in building Canada strong. And Madam Speaker, they're so excited about the work for their members. And as a proud mother of an operating engineer, I couldn't be more thrilled as well. These are great jobs for young people, for tradespeople all across the country. This is how you build a country strong, Madam Speaker. You invest in the workers of today and tomorrow.
The honourable member for Barrie South Unister.
Brookfield COO also confirmed that the umbilical cord between the Prime Minister and his company will stay attached until 2034 because the fund the Prime Minister set up will mature then. That means if it does well, he does really well. But here's the problem. He knows full well what's in his blind trust and is using the power of his office to promote policies that benefit his company and him. AI, modular housing, carbon capture, nuclear, and the transition model of public risk for private return he set up while advising Trudeau will make him millions. How is this ethical, if not illegal?
The Honourable Minister.
Canada's GDP growth last quarter was 2.6%, blowing out the economist's projections, Mr. Speaker. That's what growing Canada strong looks like. It's an investment in the potential of the country, but it's an investment in right now. We have the highest rate of women ever in the workforce, Mr. Speaker. You know why? Because we have an affordable child care agreement. And yesterday, Saskatchewan signed an extension, 5 years, $1.5 billion, to make sure we can not only get women in the workforce, but keep them there. And one more thing, Madam Speaker, $10 a day has been achieved in Saskatchewan. That's real action. That's partnership with provinces.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has vast conflicts of interest with Brookfield. That's why the Ethics Commissioner specifically told him not to meet with Brookfield. Despite this, the Prime Minister secretly met with the Chief Operating Officer of Brookfield in October. So a simple question, why did the Prime Minister violate the clear direction of the Ethics Commissioner?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the member's resort to personal attacks and dealing in conspiracy theories speaks to a larger issue. A member from the province of Alberta today unable to celebrate the agreement that we have achieved that his own premier is celebrating in public about the opportunity to protect the environment and create good jobs. If he won't stand up for Alberta, I, as somebody from the East Coast who spent 5 years there, absolutely will. The GDP numbers that we've seen come in the past quarter, seeing it go up 2.6%, means good jobs for people and food on the tables for families. We're here to create jobs. It's a shame the Conservatives are opposed.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Conspiracy theory, the Ethics Commissioner told the Prime Minister not to meet with Brookfield, and then he did so. Now, this is a Prime Minister that was the chair of Brookfield and who stands to make tens of millions of dollars from in future bonus pay and from stock options. And not only did the Prime Minister clearly violate the direction of the Ethics Commissioner, he attempted to cover it up by not disclosing the meeting. Is this the Prime Minister's idea of ethics?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, I think my colleague has left his tinfoil hat in the men's room before he attended question period here today. He's here talking about things that do not matter to the people at home as much as things like doctors, jobs, lower taxes. Frankly, Madam Speaker, it is a shame that members of this House of Commons are simply not focused on the priorities of Canadians. The GDP has increased 2.6% in the past quarter. The last jobs report showed 67,000 new jobs. Every month since the Prime Minister has held that office, wages have increased faster than inflation. Madam Speaker, we're going to stand up to build an economy that can stand on its own 2 feet, advance major projects, create jobs for people at home. I wish they'd support it.
The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, La Madeleine-Listigouche. Madam Speaker, this is no time to celebrate. Yesterday's agreement with Alberta is climate betrayal. Instead of announcing one more dirty oil pipeline, the Liberals are saying there might be several, in addition to expanding Trans Mountain, which would mean at least 1.4 million additional barrels of oil per day. The Liberals are also openly threatening BC. They are saying they might force through their oil fantasies, which is one of the worst documented cases of predatory federalism. This is an incredibly aggressive policy, both on climate and in terms of provincial jurisdiction. How can these MPs continue to justify this? The Honourable Government House Leader. Well, Madam Speaker, do you want to talk about provincial jurisdiction? Let's speak about Quebec's ambitions on development, mines, critical minerals, renewable energy, clean energy. Our approach, Madam Speaker, is giving results. 2.6% of GDP growth over the last quarter. What does that mean? That means that in my esteemed colleagues' riding, mothers and fathers will be able to have hopes for their children and good jobs throughout all of Quebec's regions. The Honourable Member for Gaspésie, La Madeleine-Listigouche. Madam Speaker, these Liberals' oil folly is climate betrayal, and betrayal towards voters who thought that voting Liberal would be greener than voting Conservative. It's a betrayal towards Liberal members who ran on green values. It's a betrayal towards victims of the increasingly frequent natural disasters. These victims were hoping that elected officials would be held accountable. So the real question isn't why the member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie left cabinet. The real question is, how do the other Liberals manage to justify staying in this government? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, we stand strong on this side of the House. Why? Because, unlike the Bloc Québécois, we will stand up to our election promises. We promise to build Canada strong. We promise to respect provincial jurisdiction and to cooperate with provinces. And yes, Madam Speaker, we promise to reassure all of the mothers and fathers in Canada who are hoping that their children will have an economic future that is as prosperous as ours. That is what we're doing. We're meeting our commitments, and I would invite the Bloc Québécois to do the same. The Honourable Member for Côte-Nord, Kawa-Chikamat-Nitassinan. Madam Speaker, Quebecers know very well what it's like when Canada decides to completely ignore provinces' needs. And today, it is BC that is suffering its own night of the long knives. The Liberals in Alberta decided to sign an agreement without BC to force it to accept a pipeline, claiming that it's for national interest reasons. Quebecers should start worrying because the federal government has wanted to add a pipeline along the St. Lawrence for over 10 years. If this is what the Liberals are doing today, are they planning to do the same thing to Quebec? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, this morning I got good economic news. 2.6% GDP growth. And you know what BC is not saying? Oh, we need the Bloc Québécois to defend us. We will work closely with BC. We will do so because we have a duty to consult and respect BC First Nations. That is what we're going to do. We are going to do all of that, Madam Speaker, and we don't need the help of the Bloc Québécois, which only wants to split the country.
And Clark.
The Prime Minister's priorities are clear. He has gone from elbows up to putting his hands in the air and saying, who cares when it comes to negotiating for Canada. However, he's still working hard for the interests of Brookfield. Right. We learned in the recent budget that the Liberals are giving $500 million to the European Space Agency. Unreal. Guess who owns 50% of the UK campus where those funds are going? You guessed it right, Brookfield. Why does this Prime Minister continue to put his financial interests above the interests of Canadians?
Brookfield strong.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me remind the member that we are doing very, very well. We woke up to tremendous news this morning, and he can rest assured that our government is entirely focused on building on our economy and on supporting industries and workers that require our help. We were elected to build Canada, and that's exactly what we're doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Northumberland Clark.
We continue to hear these old, tired lines from the so-called new government. They tell us again and again, Canadians have never had it so good. Here's the reality. Food bank usage is at record rates, over 2 million per month. Meanwhile, Brookfield stock has gone up by over 20% since the Prime Minister got elected. Maybe that's just a coincidence. Why do Canadians have to continue to suffer while Liberal elites get wealthier and wealthier?
Brookfield strong.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me remind the member who comes from the same province that I do that we're actually helping invest in Darlington New Nuclear Project in Bowmanville. It's a project that is going to build 4 new small nuclear reactors, the first of its kind in the G7. It's going to provide clean, reliable electricity to power 1.2 million homes. It's going to reduce our carbon emissions, and it's going to create 18,000 good-paying, quality jobs for the people of Ontario. Madam Speaker, why don't the members opposite get on board and support a plan that is actually growing our economy 2.6% this year?
Honourable Member for York Durham.
To get elected, the Prime Minister promised to negotiate a win. But now that the election is over, he says, who cares? Canadians were promised a Churchill, but what we got was Chamberlain. He appeased the U.S. President by dropping the digital services tax. He appeased the U.S. President by withdrawing our softwood lumber challenge. But appeasement didn't get us any trade peace. We thought we got nothing, but in fact, he just got nothing for Canadians. Brookfield got an $80 billion nuclear deal. Is that coincidence or cause and effect? Why does it appear that this Prime Minister continues to put his private interests ahead of those of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, it is really challenging to take the Conservatives at their word when they're trying to purport to care about Canadians. I mean, they vote against everything, even with the word care in it. That's right. Dental care, child care, pharma care, even health care infrastructure to build hospitals in my community in Durham region where that member is from. They won't even support that. So you want to show that you care, step up to support major projects in this country that will create, like the new nuclear project at Darlington, creating 21,700 jobs in our region, and that member voted against it.
Shame on it. Honourable Member for York Durham. Order!
Canadians and Conservatives care about the integrity of the highest office in the land, the Prime Minister. The conflict of interest rules are clear for members of the House. They are to arrange their private affairs in a manner to avoid real or apparent conflicts of interest. An $80 billion nuclear deal for Brookfield, $500 million to the European Space Agency to benefit Brookfield, undisclosed meetings with Brookfield executives. These raise serious issues of conflict of interest. Why does it appear that the Prime Minister continues to put his private interests ahead of those of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
This member would rather question the loyalty of our Prime Minister, who is securing deals all around the world to drive investment into Canada, to protect jobs, who's stepping up with packages of support for tariff-impacted industries. This member won't even stand up to support a hospital in Durham region with the healthcare infrastructure funding that we put in the federal budget. He won't stand up to support a major project that will provide 1.2 million homes in our region with clean energy and 21,700 jobs. How can he say he cares about anybody but himself?
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix. It's Black Friday, but no deals for Canadians. This week we learned that the Liberals gave $500 million to the European Space Agency, which is 10 times more than the former agreement under Justin Trudeau. And who holds 50% of that campus? Brookfield does. Once again, the Prime Minister is placing his own interests above those of Canadians. Or in fact, he's harming Canadians. He's harming investment here in the country. And he's harming jobs in Quebec and Canada. Why can't this Prime Minister place Canadians above his own interests? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's pretty simple, Madam Speaker. Everything we're doing is to help Canadians. The Conservatives are trying to pretend they care about ethics to distract people from the real work we're doing. In the budget, there is a series of measures that will help our economy and workers. Ports, roads, work with Hydro-Quebec to increase their production, mines, jobs. That's what it means to build Canada strong. Let's stop trying to distract people and let's work on what really matters. The Honourable Member. Madam Speaker, the devil is in the details. Yesterday, the Liberal government made a number of announcements in Alberta, and the Prime Minister once again found a way to benefit himself. He announced a carbon capture program. But who holds the technology for that type of mega project? Brookfield does. When Brookfield makes money, so does the Prime Minister. Why is it that every time there's an announcement, it seems that the Liberal government is going to look at the list of Brookfield's projects to pick and choose its own projects? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Well, Madam Speaker, what I would tell my colleague is that we are working closely with all provinces and sectors. This government was elected to build a strong economy, a sustainable economy, and a future for our children. And the proof that our approach is working is that today our productivity is going up. That's great news, Madam Speaker. Our policies are working, and I would ask our colleagues to join us and vote in favor of these measures.
For Richmond Hill South.
Every time this Prime Minister talks trade, it seems to be closing deals for his old firm Brookfield, while Canadian workers and taxpayers are left out in the sidelines. He went to Washington, and Brookfield walked away with an $80 billion nuclear deal. He went to London, and Brookfield got over $500 million for the European Space Agency. He hosted Swedish royalty, and Brookfield announced an AI deal with Sweden. Now he's forcing Alberta to pour billions of taxpayer dollars into carbon capture just to get a pipeline, exactly where Brookfield holds major stakes. So when this Prime Minister said he will build at a scale and speed not seen in generations, did he really mean just for Brookfield and not for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, it appears that my honourable colleague has not really been cognizant of what the Prime Minister's been doing. $70 billion, Madam Speaker, and a financial commitment of investment from the UAE. We can also list the Philippines, Indonesia, Germany, Thailand, the Philippines, India. These are the trade deals that that we're embarking upon, Madam Speaker. On the other side of the House, what are they focused on? Issues that Canadians are not going to benefit from. We are here for Canadians, building Canada strong.
Honorable député de Beauharnois.
The honourable member for Beauharnois, Salaberry, Soulanges, Huntington. Madam Speaker, we are shocked by what we've heard from the new Minister of Natural Resources. Yesterday, while he was commenting on the departure of the Minister of the Environment, he said that those who care about what the Liberals are doing on oil are simply nostalgic for the past and looking for silver bullets. Apparently, caring about the environment means you're just nostalgic. It's very concerning knowing that this is someone who is close to the Prime Minister. They've been close ever since they were both young bankers at Goldman Sachs. So is it true that for the Liberals, fighting climate change is just a matter of nostalgia? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Natural Resources was referring to the fact that the current economic situation has just changed. I think that all Quebecers understand very well that we are in a new era. Our trade relationship with the US and the entire world has changed. So that means that we have to secure our economy. We have to work with the provinces. We have to meet our economic objectives. We have to launch big renewable energy projects, critical mineral projects in Quebec. We said we would build the country, and that's what we're doing. The honourable member for Beauharnois, Salaberry, Soulanges, Huntington. Madam Speaker, what I'm hearing is shocking. The same minister also said that any Liberal colleagues who are concerned about this are just naive Boy Scouts, according to the Toronto Star. So apparently in Canada nowadays, you can be the Minister of Natural Resources and think that being worried about the proliferation of dirty oil pipelines is just a matter of magical thinking, nostalgia, naivete, being a Boy Scout. I don't even think the leader of the Conservatives is that much of a climate skeptic. How can it be that Quebec Liberals continue to support what we're hearing from a minister like that? The Honourable Secretary of State. Madam Speaker, we had a province that was having difficulty joining with us on fighting climate change and climate and emissions. And now today, that same province has now agreed to an increase in the carbon price and has also agreed to reduce its emissions, methane emissions, by 75%. 75% decrease in methane emissions. And in order for the project to occur, we need an agreement with BC. We need an agreement with First Nations. And we need a backer. The honourable member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, the U.S. has brought in devastating tariffs, 45% on Canadian softwood lumber. And recently the Prime Minister was asked if he had spoken to Donald Trump about trade, and he said, who cares? Well, I can tell you that in Beauce, people do care. 8,000 jobs depend on softwood lumber in Chaudière-Appalaches. Those people definitely care. Madam Speaker, will the Prime Minister rise today, look those 8,000 workers in the eye, and repeat, who cares? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Madam Speaker. In rural areas, we need our forestry workers. We need our Canadian softwood lumber. We are all proud of that sector in Canada. In my own riding, I have proud forestry sector businesses. This week, we announced significant measures to support that sector. We know that these times are very difficult. And when that happens, we support each other, which is what we are doing to support the forestry sector. We will settle these problems with the U.S. Meanwhile, we will help the sector. The honourable member for Beauce. Unlike the Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, we care about the softwood lumber sector. What the sector needs is not a loan program. That won't replace the $780 million of salaries that are currently being received in the region. The Prime Minister promised he'd reach a deal with the Americans, but instead things are getting worse. Companies don't need loans. They want a trade agreement with the Americans. That's the key market for their sector. So will the Prime Minister stop saying, who cares? Will he sign a softwood lumber deal with the Americans? Yes or no? The Honourable Government House Leader. Madam Speaker, I will not listen to the Conservatives on the matter of softwood lumber. We are in a trade war, Madam Speaker. And when it comes to softwood lumber, that trade war has been going on for decades. We are here to help people. Unlike the Conservatives, we are supporting workers. We are supporting our businesses. We are modernizing and diversifying our products. And we are ensuring that Canadian softwood lumber is used in our major housing projects in Canada. That's what we're doing.
Prince George.
In 2006, our Conservative government negotiated an end to the longest softwood lumber war. We negotiated a 10-year agreement with a 1-year grace period, which this government squandered. These Liberals have failed to do this in 10 years. 10 years! Thousands of jobs. Over 30 mills closed in the province of British Columbia. The Prime Minister ran an entire election on a false premise that he was a man with a plan, that he could get the job done. Now he says, who cares? As our lumber industry is crippled and communities are decimated.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we are in a trade war. We are in a very difficult situation, and in that situation, this government is standing with those affected workers. We are moving heaven and earth to help them. We just announced another $500 million of supports 2 days ago. The member is fully aware of this, and we are open to more ideas for more supports. Now, we had a take-note debate the other night. I asked the Conservative members for their ideas. Do you want to know how many ideas I got from them? 0. How about we get some ideas on the table? We are happy to support. We are happy to work with you to support. Let's get some ideas on the table.
The Honourable Member for Prince George.
You want a flipping idea what to do? Get a flipping deal done. 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. Madam Speaker, another week, another mill closure in my riding. That's 100 direct and indirect jobs lost. That's hundreds of thousands of taxes for our municipalities. That's $1 million of taxes from our community of 100 Mile. Do you want to know who matters, Madam Speaker? It's the families that lost their jobs. That's who matters. Get their job done. Get agreement. Will the Prime Minister come to our region, tell them, look them in the eyes and tell them that they don't matter?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, helpful ideas like just get a deal done are not going to get the deal done. We need ideas. We need support for workers, the workers you and I both care about. How about we work together to help this industry instead of these histrionics in the House? How about that?
The Honourable Member for Oshawa.
Clapping for
Mr.
failure.
Speaker, the Prime Minister was asked whether he had spoken to Trump about trade, and guess what he did? He brushed off the question saying, who cares? He may not think it's a serious matter, but Conservatives do, and so do auto workers in Oshawa and across Ontario and Quebec who are seeing their jobs disappear. Thousands of auto jobs are leaving Canada, and workers justifiably feel their jobs don't matter because this Prime Minister said so. So if the Prime Minister won't fight for Canadian auto workers, then who is he fighting for? Brookfield?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I would like to ask this member what she cares about. Does she care about health care, access to critical care and health care in our region? Because she voted against Budget 2025, including the Healthcare Infrastructure Fund, which will fund hospitals and healthcare facilities all across Canada, including in Durham region. Does she care about 21,700 jobs at the new nuclear project in Darlington? Because she voted against that as well, Madam Speaker. It's clear that she doesn't care about our region.
The Honourable Député de Terre.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Madam Speaker, NATO has long been a cornerstone of international rules-based order that has delivered peace and stability since the Second World War. Next week, our allies and partners will meet in Brussels to address the conflicts and challenges facing our alliance. Can the Minister of Foreign Affairs inform this House how she plans to represent Canada and work with our allies to advance our interests ahead of this important meeting?
Bonne question.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for this question. And next week, I will be at NATO to discuss very important issues with our allies, for example, Ukraine, the Arctic, and our collective defense. With an investment of $80 billion in the 2025 budget, we are here for the Canadian Armed Forces and our defense sector. Canada will always do its part for the collective defense of our country and the protection of our country.
Parkland.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister promised Canadians a pipeline. Maybe, someday. He's not sure. Meanwhile, the Environment Minister can't even say the word pipeline, and another minister just jumped ship. This isn't a grand bargain, it's a grand ransom. The only thing certain is that Canadians' industrial carbon taxes are going up. Right. Canadians have sacrificed a lot, and all we've received so far are vague Liberal promises. Will the Prime Minister tell us what year we will see shovels in the ground on a new oil pipeline to the West Coast?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, we had yesterday a very comprehensive display of meeting the ambitions and meeting the moment in Western Canada, in Alberta, making sure that we have a better path to fighting climate change, a higher price on industrial carbon. Premier Smith has signed on to a radical set of new measures to make sure we have clean electricity, to make sure we build data centers, to make sure we build nuclear energy. And you know who's going to do all that? Canada's building trades people, the men and women of Canada's building trades. We're going to be building Alberta strong, building Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Parkland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Notice he didn't say pipeline. As part of the Great Ransom, taxpayers will be required to invest billions to pump air into the ground. Meanwhile, by pure coincidence, I'm sure, the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield, is the largest investor in carbon capture company Entropy. The Prime Minister is using taxpayers' funds to underwrite his company's investments. Brookfield's $300 million investment in Entropy is already backed by $200 million in taxpayers' funds. That's not Canada strong, that's Brookfield strong. How much does this Prime Minister stand to gain by forcing Canadians to fund his carbon capture projects?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, tinfoil is actually made of aluminum, so I'd like to thank the member for her first act supporting that sector in this House. The facts of the matter are this. Yesterday we announced an MOU with Alberta that increases economic prosperity for this country, that increases environmental sustainability and the durability of environmental action in this country, and it makes us less reliant on the United States. That's a good day for Alberta. That's a good day for Canada. I welcome the member's office to get on board.
The member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Madam Speaker, this week we saw reports that the BC Liberal caucus is seething, anxious, and angry of the Prime Minister's pipe dream to the Pacific Coast. To keep them quiet, he even gave the BC Premier a veto on the project and will increase the industrial carbon tax that will only make everything worse. When the Prime Minister said he would build at a scale and speed not seen in generations, did he mean taxes, not projects?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, yesterday was a great day for Canada because it got us onto a better course of action and more common ground and confederation between Alberta and Canada, which will also lead to a better course of action across the entire country. Part of the agreement was that we would work with British Columbia, we would work in a tripartite table, and of course we all respect the Indigenous rights of peoples. This is great for Canada, this expands our markets, this expands our economy, and this makes environmental action more durable.
The Honourable Member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Madam Speaker, families need stronger paychecks and affordable energy. But instead building pipelines to the Pacific, the Prime Minister gives us more paper, more delays, and more vetoes. The MOU guarantees nothing except 7 months of waiting and 2 years of federal studies. When will the Prime Minister finally get out of the way, give Canadians a firm construction date for the West Coast pipeline, or will this be another Liberal broken promise?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Speaker. This Prime Minister is focused on making sure that we're creating good-paying jobs for all Canadians. We are investing and building things like they've never been done before. We're making sure that we diversify trade, so we're investing in our ports right in British Columbia so that we can export more to other markets like the Indo-Pacific. That is the focus of this government. That is the focus of this Prime Minister. We will not rest until we create good-paying jobs for all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Similkameen and South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Ms. Speaker, Liberal MPs in BC are telling the media they are, quote, seething, anxious, and angry about a pipeline that would end Canada's economic dependence on the United States. The Liberal caucus is falling apart over this. The Prime Minister must not give his Keep It in the Ground caucus or Premier Evie a veto. Only he has the constitutional and legislative power to approve a pipeline today. Will he ignore the naysayers
House and approve it today, or will he offer more delay?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we're committed on this side of the House to cooperative federalism with the province of Alberta, but we remain committed and we remain respectful of Aboriginal and treaty rights, as well as the free, prior, informed consent of communities entrenched in UNDRIP. And so we're going to continue to respect these rights. It's not only the right thing to do, but it's also the law.
The Honourable Member for St. Lucan and South Okanagan, West Whitby.
Madam Speaker, let's be clear what was signed yesterday. A memorandum that will hike the industrial carbon tax, and in exchange, the Liberals will allow a pipeline proposal to be further studied for the next 2 years. There are no timelines for approval, and many Liberals are demanding that the timelines be never. This Liberal caucus is divided. Will the Prime Minister ignore them, forget the tax hikes, and just approve a pipeline today? Or is this pipeline a pipe dream?
Yeah. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Immigration.
Madam Speaker, the slogans continue on the other side. What is lacking is seriousness. They condemn a decision signed by the Premier of Alberta. Yesterday was a great day for Alberta and for Canada. This government was elected on a policy vision to ensure more jobs in this country, economic stewardship, and environmental stewardship at the same time. We will maintain that vision from start to finish. I invite the member to join us.
The Honourable Member for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee.
Madam Speaker, we hear that the BC Liberal caucus is, quote, seething, anxious and angry about a possible pipeline, so the Prime Minister is appeasing them by hiding behind the provincial NDP like Brookfield hides behind Caribbean tax laws. After 9 years of Liberal energy mismanagement, Canadians want a pipeline. Will the Prime Minister do his job, stop the political games, and immediately get shovels in the ground on this oil pipeline?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the far-reaching Memorandum of Understanding with Alberta includes a number of timelines. I invite the members to read it. By July 1st of next year is when a pipeline proposal will come from the province of Alberta. There are timelines, and we are seeing that not just talk about pipelines, but talks about AI data centers, nuclear energy, many ways we can grow the Canadian economy in a clean way, in a big way, in a way that doesn't rely as much on the United States of America. This is a good day for Alberta. This is a good day for Canada. I invite the members opposite to get on board.
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Madam Speaker, the Liberal government isn't just divided, it's cracking. BC Liberal MPs are publicly venting, unnamed ministers are warning of serious problems, and now their Quebec lieutenant has walked out of cabinet entirely. But while the Prime Minister struggles to hold his team together, Canadians are left paying the price. We sell almost all our oil to one customer, the U.S., because we have no pipeline to the Pacific. When will the Prime Minister stop putting political damage control ahead of the national interest and give us a date when the pipeline will be built?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the Liberal caucus is only cracking open wide enough to welcome Conservatives to come join us. My honourable colleague would like a date for a pipeline to the West Coast. How about May of last year when the Trans Mountain expansion got new Canadian products to markets, which is driving up the price of Canadian resources? The Conservatives have failed to get anything built when they were last in government because they ignored the role of provinces, because they ignored the rights of Indigenous peoples in this country. By working together with different levels of government and Indigenous rights holders, we are able to advance major projects. This is not some idea. This is our...
The Honourable Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Madam Speaker, a pipeline to the West Coast isn't just another project. It's a nation-building decision that falls squarely under the federal government's authority. Canadians expect the Prime Minister to act, but instead, he's given the NDP Premier of BC a veto in an effort to manage the uproar in his caucus, a caucus that's now losing senior ministers over the issue. Madam Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stop passing the buck and use the federal authority that rests with him alone to ensure this pipeline gets built?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, she's talking about the constitutional authority of the Prime Minister. If she actually read the entirety of the section that she's referring to, she would notice that it also gives the constitutional authority to provincial governments to build or not build the infrastructure, the roads, the electricity, the water services that it would make possible to have a pipeline actually operate in the first place. In addition, Madam Speaker, Section 35 of that very same Constitution demands that governments respect the inherent and treaty rights of Indigenous peoples in this country, including by consulting them on advancing major projects. By working together, we can get big things done. That's a path.
The honourable member for Dartmouth, Cold Harbour.
Madam Speaker, Atlantic Canada is a culture of innovation, and my riding of Dartmouth Coal Harbour is home to leading ocean technology and maritime defence researchers and innovators, many of them located strategically along the shores of beautiful Dartmouth Cove. These companies and partners are driving major advances in ocean tech and strengthening Canada's national defence and security. Can the Minister highlight the work the government is doing to support these important security and defence initiatives in Dartmouth Coal Harbour?
The Honourable Minister of Defence.
Madam Speaker, I thank this member for his work and for his advocacy for Atlantic Canadian excellence. This past weekend, we announced Canada's first Maritime Defence Innovation Secure Hub, or DISH, at Cove in Dartmouth Coal Harbour. This is a brand new $30 million hub will bring together for the first time defence and security partners, industry, academia, naval operators to develop, to test, and transition new maritime technologies. Madam Speaker, from coast to coast to coast, we are investing millions in building up a resilient innovation industry right here at home.
Honourable member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Madam Speaker, millions of Canadians don't have a family doctor, and Canada's emergency rooms are overflowing. But non-citizens who've had their asylum claims rejected are eligible for all sorts of federal health benefits that Canadians aren't, like mental health support and vision care. It's unfair to offer people with no legal reason to be in Canada better federal health benefits than Canadians have access to. Why are the Liberals giving bogus asylum claimants who have no legal reason to be in Canada access to better health services than Canadians rather than simply deporting them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Immigration.
Madam Speaker, the member knows very well that those who are not eligible to be here will face the consequences of Canadian law, Mr. Speaker. We trust authorities to carry that out. As for services in this country, we understand that there's been a strain on services and that the immigration system has a part to play in that. What's also at stake, Madam Speaker, is that we put policy on the table to address those issues. A sustainable, responsible immigration system is exactly what we're pursuing to address those service challenges.
We'll have it for Calgary, Nose Hill.
People with no legal right to be in Canada should not have access to federal health benefits. Right. Yes. The Liberals have given a Dutch Somali national who gave multiple false names and birth dates to immigration officers, have also lied about being in a polygamous marriage, yet another chance to stay in Canada. Lying to immigration officers should immediately invalidate somebody's ability to stay in Canada. The decision to let someone enter or stay in Canada should be made on truthful information. This is a no-brainer. Why are the Liberals rewarding non-citizen liars with the right to stay in Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I say this with all due respect. This is the immigration critic for the Conservative Party for almost 10 years. She knows very well that when new information comes in, it can lead to the cancellation of existing visas that allow individuals to be here in the first place. And so when we understand these matters, we leave it in the hands of authorities to address those matters. On this side of the House, we are continuing to be seized with the importance of ensuring a sustainable, responsible immigration system that's focused on the economy from the beginning to end, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Nose Hill.
Well, in that case, the government found out that this person was a polygamist, lied about it, and still let them stay here. So, Mr. Speaker, we also this week heard the Liberals argue against my bill, which would remove the ability of activists, judges, and lawyers to give leniency to non-citizens convicted of serious crimes like sexual assault. And for a non-citizen, being able to stay in Canada should be considered a privilege, not a right. Non-citizens convicted of sexual assault or those who were caught lying about polygamy shouldn't be rewarded with this ability to stay in Canada. They should be removed. It's a no-brainer.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The member is or should be aware of the landmark Supreme Court decision of 2013 that says that the courts and judges in particular can take note of the immigration status of an individual, but cannot use that to condition sentencing in a way that would avoid immigration consequences, Madam Speaker. This is not a serious question, Madam Speaker. The point is that if we're going to do immigration policy seriously in this country, we have to make sure that we allow care.
The honourable member for Markham Social.
Madam Speaker, Canada has what the world needs and wants. The best educated workforce in the world, free trade agreements with every G7 country, an abundance of natural resources, world-class innovators, entrepreneurs and exporters. And thanks to Budget 2025, Canada will have the lowest marginal effective tax rate in the G7. Unlike the members opposite, I'm proud to have voted in favour of a budget that will boost productivity and attract investments. Can the Parliamentary Secretary remind this House exactly what those who...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Speaker, that the Conservatives will talk down our industries and workers every chance they get. That may help generate clicks and fundraising emails, but it won't build Canada strong. So while they're in the business of saying no, we're in the business of saying yes. Yes to productivity tax deductions for businesses. Yes to making it easier for Canadian companies to invest in machinery, equipment, and technology to help them grow and thrive. Yes to catalyzing investments to supercharge productivity in Canada. When we say yes to Canada and to Canadians, Conservatives say no. Maybe that's why Canadians keep saying no every time the Conservatives...
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
So every time the Prime Minister talks trade, it seems Brookfield comes out ahead and Canadians get left behind. Travels to Washington, Brookfield got an $80 billion nuclear deal. Traveled to the UK, Brookfield got money from the EU Space Agency. He hosts Swedish royalty in Canada. Brookfield announces an AI deal even before they land back in Stockholm. Now he's forcing Alberta to put money into carbon capture programs in exchange for a pipeline. And guess who has a major stake in the sector? Brookfield. Madam Speaker, when he said he would build at scale not seen in generations, did he really mean just for Brookfield?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, on this side of the House, count us a little perplexed as to the approach of the Conservatives in question period today. First, we have the news of 2.6% growth in our economy, which leads all published data in the G7. We signed a landmark agreement with the province of Alberta yesterday that will secure an economic future for families, for children, for people looking for jobs, and an economic future across the prairies and into British Columbia. Madam Speaker, it is shameful that this Conservative Party sets up their tinfoil hats.
Honourable member for Nunavut.
This summer, a cargo ship went aground in the Franklin Strait, a rare occurrence. With climate change, the Northwest Passage has become more accessible. Nunavut relies heavily on ship diesel, and the risk of damaging the pristine waters is increasing. Mapping the seafloor will ensure more predictable navigation. Will the minister commit to funding Arctic bathymetry as a multi-use project to keep Canada's sovereignty over the Arctic?
The Honourable Government House Leader. The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Madam Speaker, with our Arctic foreign policy, we are continually ensuring that the sovereignty and the livelihood of the Arctic is protected. That is why we are putting on the table $80 billion for defense spending. In conjunction with Indigenous peoples, we are going to make sure that we protect the Arctic and we defend the Arctic, and we will do so with our international allies. I'll be traveling to NATO next week to have those.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
closed doors, without BC and First Nations at the table, the Prime Minister agreed to lift the tanker ban, put at risk the way of life of coastal communities, bring in a new fossil fuel subsidy at the expense of renewable energy and clean technologies, and move Canada further away from its greenhouse gas reductions targets. The Prime Minister says they will not proceed without the consent of BC and free, prior, informed consent of First Nations. But nowhere is this spelled out in the MOU. Why?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Indigenous treaty rights do not need to be spelled out in MOUs. They are inherent. But I do want to talk a little bit about the MOU and what the MOU allows. The MOU allows us to have a durable climate plan, one that moves the effective price of carbon in Alberta from $25 to $130. It allows us to reduce methane emissions by 75%. It allows us to take carbon out of the air through carbon capture, and it does that in a way that says that there are going to be ongoing reviews to make sure those commitments towards net zero in 2050 are maintained. This is great news for the climate, and I encourage everybody in this House.
This is the end of oral questions. Affaires courantes. Affaires courantes. Dépôt de documents. Dépôt de projets de loi émanant des